I don't remember when I first heard about Dragon Ball. It's always been there in my life. I think my earliest memories of it was watching Goku looking at the moonlight and turning into a giant ape for the first time. It wasn't the first episode, but it was close enough. I wasn't even 4 years old at the time. The show was a big success, especially when it eventually got to the Dragon Ball Z. If you're my age or older and you're Portuguese, you know Dragon Ball. You couldn't escape it, and I didn't want to escape. Throwing Kamehamehas at school, playing with our bootleg Dragon Ball toys and Dragon Ball stickers and Dragon Ball Pogs, wearing our Dragon Ball shirts and caps and backpacks. It's something that has been part of my childhood, but the last time I saw it fully, from start to end, was probably when I was 7 or 8 years old. Sure, there have been reruns. Actually, the show never stopped airing in some form or another since it started all the way back in 1996. And I've caught some episodes as an adult, the early parts of the Dragon Ball, the end of the Cell Saga in Z, and the ending of GT, which was honestly a lot better than I remember it being. But I've never gotten back to seeing the entire thing again. Well, I say again, but surely you understand that I can't possibly know if I saw all the episodes even back then. I probably didn't, and even if I did, I don't actually remember most of it. Yeah, throughout the age I've seen scenes and moments that I keep repeating, and I've played the campaign of Budokai Tenkaichi 2 a couple of times, which is the closest to fully experiencing the story again that I've done. But I've never consumed it in its totality in order. So, with Manga Plus finally allowing me to read completed series, and Dragon Ball being one of them, I thought it could be interesting to jump back into the very first chapter of Dragon Ball and read all the 520 chapters in order and see how it holds up. Is the nostalgia still there, and how does this one compare now that I've read almost 100 other battle shonens? Let's find out. As of this video, I've read the entirety of the first block of Dragon Ball, the so-called OG, the original, from chapter 1 down to 194, from meeting Bulma all the way to the end of the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai tournament. Chapter 195 starts as a portion, so I thought it could be an interesting spot to pause and absorb my experience. There's eventually going to be a part 2 where I talk about my opinions of Dragon Ball Z. So, with the intro out of the way, let's talk about the very first arc. So, jumping into the very first chapter of Dragon Ball, the thing that I find myself automatically going back to is another manga altogether, 1980's Dr. Slump. If you don't know, Dr. Slump is the debut series and first success of Akira Toriyama before he started Dragon Ball. Because Dr. Slump was a big success and his previous manga, it is to be expected Toriyama would slide some elements from his previous series into this one, starting with the main character. Kid Goku shares a lot of similarities with Dr. Slump's main character Arale, but are small and chubby, quite dumb and naive because of their lack of experience with the outside world, and both are portrayed as abnormally strong. While Dragon Ball goes for a more action-based manga, it still very much has the comedy that popularized Dr. Slump scattered throughout the series. At this point, the manga is arguably more comedy than action. There's this one panel that is absolutely classic Dr. Slump's Toriyama, which is when Goku punches Yamcha and he hits and breaks the panel right here. With that said, Dragon Ball is far more contained in its comedy and very much more story focused. And honestly, this first arc is just really fun and charming. It feels like we're going through an actual journey through a world full of wacky characters, starting with our main character. But even the ones that will become more grounded, they are turned up to 11 here. Like, this is peak Yamcha, as it tries to steal the Dragon Balls but can't even be near Bulma because she's a girl. Or Hulong, who looks like this strong monster but only for 5 minutes. Then Master Roshi is Master Roshi. And Bulma and Goku are really fun together. Their interactions are just peak comedy. Chi-Chi and her father, the Ox King, are two characters that I really liked and expected to see more throughout the original Dragon Ball, but honestly got quite disappointed. I know that they reappear in Z, but honestly they are characters that very much feel like they belong in this first half, and I think it's sad that they end up being this underused. It's really interesting to look at the roster of characters at this time and remember that these are the starting cast, the ones that have been here since the very beginning. Like, this is Goku, Bulma, Yamcha, Puhar, and Hulong. That's the main cast. Krillin isn't even here. And of course we have to talk about the first villain of the series, Pilaf. I love these dudes a lot, and I've enjoyed seeing them reappear here and there throughout the series. For a series where pretty much every villain has been a boss of an organization, or at the very least of a couple of people, none of them have the connection with their underlings quite like Pilaf. It's honestly very endearing to see because they all feel like a couple of kids who are best friends who just want the damn Dragon Balls, and because of that they fit really well into this first arc where we aren't really at the point where we can care about a strong villain. A funny one will do the job perfectly. There's not a lot in this series that feels dated. This is very much a timeless tale that you can show to your kids and they'll enjoy it. I think the one thing that we can say that really aged gracefully is interactions between Master Roshi and Bulma, especially because, you know, Bulma is 16 at the start of the series. Master Roshi being a pervert will be a bigger deal in the next arc though. But before moving to that one, the final thing I want to say is that I was honestly very surprised with the pacing of this arc. By chapter 1 we have 3 Dragon Balls, 4 by chapter 4, 5 by chapter 6, it slows down a bit for the second to last ball, getting them by chapter 15, and then by chapter 19 all the Dragon Balls are assembled and Shenlong has been summoned. Even with the fantastic finale of Goku turning into the Great Ape for the first time, this entire thing wraps up by chapter 23, less than 2 volumes. And honestly, had this been the entire manga, it would still be a pretty solid outing, being easily my second favorite arc of the entire first part, but it does feel like you're reaching the main goal quite fast. Of course, that's when the manga reveals that it's not really about the Dragon Balls at all, and instead about Goku's journey into being the strongest creature that ever existed. Cue Arc 2. Right from the second arc, we are introduced to a stable of battle shonens, the training and the tournament arcs. This could have been divided into 2, with the first half being the training with Master Roshi and the second half being the actual first tournament, but I thought it makes sense to bundle them together, and the Dragon Ball wiki agrees with me, so heh. Now, I did say this is stable of battle shonen, but this arc is where we see how much not a battle shonen Dragon Ball is at this stage. I mean, the first 4 chapters of this arc are spending looking for a hottie for Master Roshi, which sure serves as a way to introduce the 2 other major main characters in this first half, Krillin and Lunch. You forgot about Lunch, didn't you? I don't really blame you if you did. She becomes pretty much just a minor character right from the get-go. I felt like Toriyama had a fun character that he wanted to make, but he didn't really know how to use her, so even though I do like Lunch, I think she's pretty underwhelming right from the start. After that, we get into the proper training, and yeah, it's fun. I think it does a good job at finally portraying Master Roshi as a proper strong mentor. It was very hard to take him seriously, even when we saw the Kamehameha, but here we see that he is indeed a good mentor when he wants, and is generally strong. It's also really cool to finally get to see my boy Krillin, even though he'll become far more likable in the future arcs than he is here. He's a good rival for Goku, and you can see that especially in the rock challenge, where they have to find a specific rock that Roshi threw away in 30 minutes. The one who does gets dinner. Throughout this challenge, we see how these two work differently. Goku just jumps right into it and tries to find it through smell, while Krillin instead tries to trick Roshi with a fake rock. When that doesn't work, he tricks Goku instead, which, having in mind how naive this kid is, was very easy to do, meaning that Goku actually loses this challenge. But I think the thing that everyone wants to see in this arc is the first proper tournament of Dragon Ball, the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai tournament, and the first of 3 in this part of the manga. And honestly, I think each of them shows exactly what Dragon Ball is at the point they happen. That said, if you're a big fan of tournament arcs, you're likely to be disappointed with this one. This tournament is a gag fest. It's hilarious and fun, but martial arts is not really the focus of this martial arts tournament. The preliminaries are actually mostly action-based because the point of them is to show how much stronger these 2 characters have grown under Master Roshi, but once you get into the tournament, well, the first match sees Krillin win against the guy whose power is to stink because Krillin doesn't have a nose, with its final move being a fart into the enemy's face. The third match sees a girl undressed to try to win her match and almost doing it. The fourth match ends with Goku's opponent giving up once he sees Goku's kicking a statue. And the match between Jackie Chun and Krillin have them reenact every action at a slow pace for the audience. Even the final match is not without its gags, but it makes sense. That is what Dragon Ball is at this point. It's a lighthearted adventure full of gags. They never really feel out of place. With that said, however, the final match between Jackie Chun and Goku is quite good, as Goku feels closer and closer to being able to overpower his mentor for turning again into the ape for the second and, sadly, final time of the first part. While the first time it ended with them cutting his tail, the second ends with the ridiculous destruction of the moon. The match even continues past that, with Jackie Chun winning by a millisecond. Compared to what's to come, it's very hard to go back to this very first tournament, but overall it's also a pretty fun one with a banger of an ending. So with that done, we're back to the adventures. The wiki actually divides this one in three, but I'm keeping it simple. This arc may be the biggest in the entire thing. It feels the biggest, at least. Goku is trying to find the 4-star Dragon Ball and he keeps meeting with the Red Ribbon Army, which is a very evil army trying to gather the balls. I think this is a very transitional arc, where it starts more or less similar to the first one, but it is true here that we start to see the manga becoming more of a battle shonen. It's not gonna be there yet, even at the end, but compared to the previous two, not only is there more action, but the threats start becoming a bit more serious. That can be seen in Muscle Tower, the small arc within this arc that sees the introduction of androids, of which we'll see more during the Cell Saga. This actually has some cool fights, including a fight against the robot Full Metal Jacket that reminds me a lot of Jack from Tekken, so I wonder if this was where the inspiration for that came from. Android 8 is also a lovely character in this segment. Overall serves as a pretty fun set of challenges for Goku to overcome as he climbs the tower. But the highlight of the entire arc comes with its major villains going forward, the Commander Blue and Tao Pai Pai. Blue is essentially the first serious villain that we have in the series, the first character in the whole manga that does feel like a genuine threat to Goku. And I think that's mainly because of two reasons. First one, this dude is generally the strongest person in the whole Red Ribbon Army. Before he appears, we do meet a couple of other commanders, but they are mostly your standard goofy villain you've expected at this point. And honestly, even after Blue is defeated for the first time, he's never topped again by the rest of the commanders that we see afterwards. And even after he's been defeated, he stays around, crossing paths with Goku a couple more times. One of these times just so happened to be in a full-fledged crossover with Dr. Slump, as Goku and Blue find themselves in Penguin Village, and this is an interesting arc, because Toriyama goes full-on Dr. Slump here. Just like Goku is in Penguin Village, a lot of parts here feel like you're reading Dr. Slump, and Goku and Blue just simply are around in the middle of the chaos. It's fun, but I'm glad it's short enough to not overstay its welcome. Sadly, we never get a full final battle between Blue and Goku, as Blue is dispatched by the next main villain, Tao Pai Pai, an assassin hired by the Red Ribbon Army to kill Goku. Tao Pai Pai is very much the quirky character you're expecting out of the series so far, but even more so than Blue. This is a character that is strong enough to actually make us believe that Goku can generally lose, and he does. Tao Pai Pai absolutely destroys Goku in a way that we haven't seen before, and Goku just doesn't die just by sheer luck. So you know what that means, it's time for a training arc. This time Goku has to climb a giant tower so you can drink a magical water at the top that's being guarded by an hermit. This is also where Dragon Ball really starts introducing holier than thou characters. The hermit is this mysterious creature that has always lived on top of the tower above the skies, and that possesses magical strengthening water, which to be fair is actually just an excuse to force whatever gets there to train with him, and actually magic beans that can keep anyone full. To say that Dragon Ball was grounded before is wrong, but we're definitely starting to see it introduce a new layer to the series previously only seen through Shenlong. It also includes a very nice bit of character portrayal as we see Goku refusing to steal the water at night, opting to do it the right way. It's a good way to introduce those elements, and afterwards we do get a power-up Goku ready for a second fight with Tao Pai Pai. This power-up, as well as the others that will come later in this part, aren't really flashy like Super Saiyan power-ups of Dragon Ball Z. Actually, other than the fact that he's toe-to-toe with Tao Pai Pai, we could be fooled to think that this is just the same Goku of before. I think it's fine to not have any visual upgrade, but it's not like he has any new technique or shows at any point to have become stronger. It just feels like it's stronger because we're told that he's stronger, and that makes it so his growth doesn't feel as impactful as it should. But honestly, it doesn't matter, because what follows is easily the best fight up to this point. Even after all of that, Tao Pai Pai is more or less on par with Goku, and that leads to probably one of the longest, most art-eating fights so far. It also starts to include a lot more laser beam fights, but thankfully the end-to-end fight is still the focus. It's a great fight, really the first of many to come, but sadly they don't really come in the rest of this arc. The final segment of this arc tries to dial up the stakes, but ends up feeling like it's dialing it down. After defeating Tao Pai Pai, Goku infiltrates the Red Army headquarters and destroys them all despite their huge numbers, leading to a pretty funny punchline where the rest of the cast is getting ready to up Goku, and it feels like it's leading to full-on invasion with all of the cast working on together, only for them to get there after Goku already beaten up everyone by himself. It's the logical conclusion of the arc, but it's still sad that the final enemy feels like such a downgrade of the previous two. It's honestly always a problem for me when the peak of the stakes of an arc is not the final battle, which is something we'll talk a bit more later. I think this would be the perfect time to have Blue face Goku again, or have the Tao Pai Pai fight here. Instead it feels like the arc peaked earlier, even though yeah, it's still a fun segment by itself. So at the end of the previous arc we got 6 out of 7 Dragon Balls, and because Goku promised he'd revive a dude that was killed by Tao Pai Pai, this arc sees him looking for the last piece of the puzzle. And because for some reason the ball isn't showing on the radar, Goku and his friends have to ask the fortune teller Baba for it, as she can answer any question, as long as you have the money, or alternatively are able to defeat their 5 champions. So, you know, this is just an excuse to have a 5-on-5. This follows more or less the formula of the other tournaments, with a very gag-focused start, leaving the actual action for the end. But the thing about these gag battles is that they're generally funny and imaginative. The first 4 champions are all or teamed monsters. We have Dracula, Invisible Man, the Mummy, and culminating with the devil himself. And our friends come up with some imaginative ways to defeat some of them, like eating garlic to defeat Dracula and making Roshi nosebleed on top of Invisible Man, and Goku defeating the devil because he has no evil in his heart. These are probably the funniest gag fights in the entire series, but the best moment of this arc comes with its final opponent, an unassuming old man that fights remarkably well. Over the course of the fight we slowly get hints that reveal this old man's real identity: Son Gohan, Goku's grandfather. Not only is this fight among the best fist fights so far, but the moment when Goku realizes who this man is genuinely touching and one of the most emotional moments in the series, making us remember that Goku, despite everything that he has gone through and done, is still just a kid at the end of the day. One that really misses his grandpa. Before we completely leave this arc, we still have the grand return of Pilaf. Its return is briefly during the Gohan's fight, where he overhears that Goku's weak point is his tail, but doesn't realize that his tail actually fell off during the fight. So what follows is a filler of massive proportions for the Short King and his friends, and is just a delight to see Pilaf return briefly before things really amp up in the next couple of arcs. I'll start by saying that out of the 3 Tenkaichi Budokai tournaments that are included in the first part of the series, this is by far my favorite. I'll talk about some of my problems with the final one when we get there, but the second tournament grabs everything the first one did and just does it better. Less filler characters and fights, just overall better action, and topping it all together with a solid story surrounding a new antagonist, one Tenshin Han. Honestly, if you had told me before I started reading the manga that Tenshin Han would be an highlight, I wouldn't think you'd be lying, but here we are. His character arc throughout this arc is pretty great. He starts as an asshole-ish villain, the apprentice of Roshi's main rival, who just happens to be the brother of Tao Pai Pai, which automatically gives us a reason to want to see this fight happen. Not only are Goku and Tenshin Han the strongest 2 of their respective houses, but there's a reason for Tenshin Han to actively dislike Goku. Plus, him just being rude to everyone makes us want to punch him so bad. Over the course of the tournament, we start seeing a shift in it. While in his first match he almost kills a down Yamcha being interrupted by Goku, his second fight sees him having to struggle against Roshi himself, which leads to an interesting interaction between the two. Roshi tries to stir Yamcha away from the ways of his master and plants the seeds of doubt that will grow throughout the final match of the tournament. But before we move to the final, let's briefly talk about the other matches in this tournament. Essentially, there's only 2 matches I'd call filler, other than the ones in the preliminaries that only serve to show our characters being strong. One of them is Goku vs Panput, which basically only serves as another match to show that Goku is strong, in case you didn't know that yet. And there's also the token gag fight of the tournament, Jackie Chun vs Man Wolf, which introduces a character that turns into a human at full moon, but because there's no moon anymore, he doesn't. Until of course, he looks at Krillin's head. It's probably one of the least funny gag matches in Dragon Ball, but I have a deeper, nitpickier problem with this as a whole. This is the only time in the entirety of Dragon Ball, at least of the arcs I've read so far, that the fact that the moon exploded is even mentioned. It's such a ridiculous and over-the-top moment that it's kinda sad it's never mentioned again other than for this gag. I mean, there's no moon in this world, and there's actually 0 consequences to it. No actual mention, no characters that address it in other than this one time gag character. It really shows how shallow and unimportant the actual world building of Dragon Ball is. And I understand that's not the point of the series, but come on, it's a fucking moon. Have it matter at least a little bit. Other than that, there's the matches with Tenshin Han that I've mentioned briefly. They are really good to progress the story of the character, but other than the final, I think the highlight of the tournament is on the Krillin fights. It first goes against Tenshin Han's sidekick, the fighter you picked on Dragon Ball games because you think it'd be funny, Xiao Zhu. Of course, he mirrors Krillin visually a lot, but what I like in this fight is how he blends the gag and the actual fighting aspects really well. The fight ends with them going on a math quiz and Xiao Zhu just can't count at all, and that lets Krillin throw him out of the ring, but everything leading to that point is a genuinely good fight. Then Krillin fights Goku, which is a fight I think a lot of people generally wanted to see at this point. And while it's clear that Goku is stronger, the fight does allow Krillin to shine and show that he's not that weak either. It's definitely a match worth the wait, and one that happens at the perfect time before Goku really outshines Krillin and all of his companions. The final though. This is the best match so far. There will be better, but at this point in the series, this is the best it has ever been. Goku vs Tenshinhan's 6-chapter long fight includes pretty much everything from solid martial arts, fake finishes, cheating, laser beams and explosions, gag counters, the entire destruction of the field, air battles, and hell, even a transformation. Not only that, but it solidifies just how good a character Tenshinhan really is, as he finds Goku to be such a spectacular opponent that he genuinely wants to win through his own ways, which leads to the main discourse of the match. More important than who wins and who loses, Tenshinhan's internal struggle of using any cheap trick for the easy win or going for a noble fight is the main problem he must face, and thankfully he chooses the latter. He ultimately wins over a technicality as both fighters fall to the ground after Tenshinhan destroyed the field, but Goku hit it first, which means he lost. With a great match done, Tenshinhan leaves as certified king of Dragon Ball, the strongest character, one that can go toe-to-toe with Goku and arguably is even stronger. But that reign won't last much longer, as the real king is about to show up and change Dragon Ball forever. This is the arc where Dragon Ball really shifts suddenly, and that's right from the get-go, as this arc starts with the death of Krillin in the backstage of the tournament they just finished. And this is really going to solidify how you see that's going forward, because this is the first time a real genuine main character in Dragon Ball dies. It's a big deal, but if you know anything about Dragon Ball, you know that this is not Krillin's last stand, it's not even his last death. The main drive in this arc is to revive Krillin and other characters that die throughout this arc, and while a lot of times it's going to seem impossible, by succeeding in the end, the series is establishing something that will happen over and over again. It's not even the first time it happens in Dragon Ball, because Goku has already revived a minor character through the Dragon Balls before, and that really makes that meaningless in this series. But as of this point right now, it's actually pretty shocking. This is the first time this happens, and not only that, but this is the first time we see Goku genuinely mad and angry at someone. Or something. We don't know exactly what killed him right now, but we will soon discover the great Demon King, Piccolo. There's something I love about this incarnation of the character. He is genuinely terrifying. He's introduced as this legend that not even Roshi and his master could defeat, only sealed away at the cost of Roshi's master's death. It's not even him that killed Krillin, that being his son Tambourine, who also manages to defeat Goku in his first fight. That's essentially an underling, so we can only imagine how strong Piccolo really is. Piccolo's minions go around killing all the martial artists in the world to make sure no one can seal them away again. It really hams the stakes of this arc, as not only Goku but characters like Yamcha and Tenshinhan are in danger of being targeted. There's also the whole destruction of the entire cities for fun that Piccolo does just to strike fear into the hearts of people. This is a serious arc with an enemy that is far stronger than Goku can ever hope to be at this point, and one that is far more dangerous and ruthless than anything we've seen in the series so far. And that is exactly the kind of villain that I love, one that we don't know how we're going to defeat, one that needs everyone to do their max to even have a chance. This is an arc that generally feels like the climax of the entire series. Goku's first fight with him ends with a complete failure, almost ending with Goku's own death. And if Goku got the almost treatment, Roshi straight up dies. Piccolo even managed to kill Shenlong after he gathered the Dragon Balls and wished for eternal youth, just to make sure that no one could wish him dead, like the rest of the gang were planning to do. Which also means that as of this point, it feels like there's no way to even bring the death back. With no other option in mind, Goku climbs the giant tower again to meet the Hermit with the help of the new character of the arc, Yajirobe. Yajirobe is introduced a bit earlier and helps Goku defeat Piccolo's minion. He's shown as a really strong character, one that can match current Goku in strength, but I feel like this is already too late to introduce him. His role in this arc is to help Goku, but not much more than that. It's clearly too weak to face a current villain, and in the next and final arc of the OG Dragon Ball, he's already being treated as a bit of a joke, so he doesn't really feel useful with the exception of this one role in this story, which is kinda sad because Yajirobe is really an interesting character. character. He's a lot like Goku in strength and personality, and it just feels like a waste of character, honestly. One that could fit very well in the early parts of this manga. Regardless, the Hermit has a solution, involving drinking a water that can bring all the hidden power residing in Goku or kill him in the process. A risk that Goku of course takes and is rewarded with unlocking the power that matches his ape form. The stage is set for the greatest fight in all of the first half. Full power Goku, at least full power for now, versus King Piccolo at the peak of his youth. More so than the great choreography or powers, I think the thing that really makes this such a great fight is the build-up. Goku has lost before, everyone has, Krillin, Roshi, and even though he's not dead, even Tenjin Han. This is the last hope. If this doesn't work, nothing will. This is Goku at the strongest it can ever be, at least supposedly, and even then, it's not an easy fight. After having used pretty much every attack, Piccolo still can't defeat Goku for good, even though Goku is absolutely on his last legs. With only one arm still functioning, Goku can only deliver one final attack, one final punch, and it's in one of the most iconic and memorable pages in all of manga history that this fight reaches its end. But despite its victory, Piccolo still has one last trick up his sleeve as he summons a nag that will reincarnate him and promises to return even stronger than before. Before the arc truly wraps up though, we have to deal with all of the deaths, including the one of Shenlong. The wiki says that this section is actually part of the Piccolo Jr. arc, but I don't think that makes sense at all, so I'm making my own rules again. This is the part of the story where we fully accept the afterworld part of Dragon Ball, as Goku travels even further than the tower to meet with God himself. But before we can go face to face with God, he has to defeat Mr. Popo. The guy that scared a billion kids, Mr. Popo is absurdly strong, and a reminder that no matter what, the power creep in Dragon Ball will never end. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to introduce a character so much stronger than Goku so casually after establishing Goku as stronger than a character who, and we'll find out shortly afterwards, is literally half of God. But alas, Goku does prove worthy of seeing God after a talk with Mr. Popo, even though he can't really defeat him. God is shockingly a twin of Piccolo. As he explains it, Piccolo is the personification of evil within him that was separated and gained his own sentient life. So again, half of fucking God. Though it is at least established that God is the far stronger half. It's also revealed that Piccolo will return for the next Tenkaichi Budokai tournament, and if Goku wants any chance of defeating him, he'll have to train in the Sanctuary for the next 3 years. So with that out of the way, God revives Shenlong and really everyone, moving us into the final time skip of this video. And so we reach the final arc of this video and the final arc of the quote-unquote original Dragon Ball. And honestly, I really think it's a necessary and kinda awkward arc. It's an arc that introduces the designs of Dragon Ball Z without actually being Dragon Ball Z. It does feel like it's in the middle section between these two parts. And I understand if you don't think this is a valid criticism, because after all, Dragon Ball Z isn't really a thing. Toriyama didn't really separate the manga in half, it was Toei that did that when they were working on the anime. And while some foreign publishers do divide Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z for the manga, notably including Viz, it's really something that is superimposed in the manga by outside sources. However, to that I still have a counterpoint. This arc is still smack in the middle of 2 time skips, and even just reading it, the final pages of chapter 194, it still feels like it's supposed to be the final arc of one section of Dragon Ball. Similar to how Naruto and One Piece also had game-changing time skips without dividing the manga in 2. Not only that, but this arc's entire shtick is that it features the return of the previous villain, Piccolo, but even stronger. This arc should feel like the final climax of the Piccolo story before we jump into the next portion of the story, but I think it massively fails at that. With the previous arc, still feels like the natural conclusion of the series prior to Raditz and everything that comes forward. This arc sees the return of all our familiar faces. After 3 long years of artist training, we're getting ready to face each other again in another tournament. Contrary to the previous tournament, the characters that leave the preliminaries are all important to the plot at hand, and there's even characters that get kicked out in the preliminaries. Chaozu loses to the returning Tao Pai Pai, and then there's Yajirobe, who's only here to lose to the unknown Shen, who appears to be a normal man but is actually God himself possessing the body of a random dude. The rest of the cast includes the usual Goku, Krillin, and Yamcha, as well as Tenjin Han, and the previously mentioned Tao Pai Pai, the also returning Shishi, and of course the big bad himself, Piccolo. Let's talk about him. Piccolo Jr. is the actual Piccolo you're most likely familiar with, the one that actually ends up befriending Goku and becoming an important character for the entirety of Dragon Ball Z. I like him a lot, but as the big bad of this arc, he fails to be the threat that his father was. First of all, I understand waiting 3 years to come back, but why the tournament? Why actually follow and respect the rules? King Piccolo's arc felt like it had the entire world on the line, but in contrast, by doing it this way, Piccolo Jr. seems more like there's just this tournament victory on the line. There's never really the same sense of stakes or urgency, and because of that, Piccolo Jr. never really feels like the bigger threat that we are constantly being told he is. But let's get into the tournament itself. The good thing about this tournament, in my opinion, is that this is the first tournament in the series that I can say every match is important to the story in some way, either in the grand scheme of things or just for the Piccolo Jr. plot. Tenshinhan vs Returning to Apple Pie is a short match that serves to bring its character arc full circle, and Goku's vs Shishi serves as a setup for the relationship going forward. It was also very fun to just see these two. I don't remember enjoying them this much. The forced marriage and the little screen time they share doesn't build up to the best romantic duo, but I can say at least I'm interested in seeing these two grow over the course of the rest of the manga. The next fight seems like a repeat for Krillin, as similar to his fight with Goku, we got a match that shows how much he grew, just to lose regardless. It really shows the problem that manga is starting to have already with the power creep. The rest of the cast can go stronger, sure, but at this point it doesn't even matter. Goku and the antagonists are so above them that even if we take time to appreciate Krillin's and Yamcha's growth, they will always be inconsequential to the bigger picture. The same can be said about Yamcha vs Shen. As for the rest of the fights, Goku vs Tenshinhan was very good and Piccolo vs God mostly serves to progress the plot, but for the final fight, well, for everything that I said about this arc, I have to admit, it is one of the best fights of the series so far. Not better than Goku vs original Piccolo, but still pretty good. It's absolutely brutal, slowly amping it up and up without ever leaving the tournament floor. Everything gets destroyed, Piccolo loses an arm, Goku gets shot straight through, and there are times where it really feels like these characters are both about to die. It also shows exactly the kind of character that Goku is, not letting anyone get involved in this fight because, well, he wants to win the tournament. Saving the world is secondary. With that said, I do think the final blow doesn't really have much impact. It's nice that we tie the actual defeat of Piccolo with the tournament victory, with the final blow putting him out of the bounds, but there's nothing in that headbutt that feels like it could end Piccolo compared with all of the previous attacks, especially when compared to the brutal final punch of the previous arc. With that though, we see more of Goku's personality as he saves Piccolo from Kami-sama and it gives him a magic bean to bring him back to his full power. A very stupid but also very Goku decision. Piccolo vows to return, but Goku has more to think about right now, as God himself asks Goku to replace him and take his position. Goku refuses, jumping into his flying nimbus with Chi-Chi as the arc reaches its end, not without Roshi assuring us that this is not the actual ending of the manga. And it isn't. There's still 355 chapters left, more than half of the series to go. But for now, this is where we're going to stop. So, how did I enjoy it? Well, I enjoyed it a lot. But I also have to admit that this isn't the series I remember it being. My biggest memories were of the early days of Dragon Ball. I had revisited the first couple of episodes of the show a couple of times, and so in my head the entire first half of Dragon Ball had this feel, but this is far from the case. In reading it, it's clear that the divide between Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z isn't as clear-cut as we think of it being. Instead, Dragon Ball slowly but steadily moves more and more into the action epic that we know and love since pretty much the second arc of the series, with the final 3 arcs already being more similar to Z than they were with the early chapters of the series. In that sense, I can't lie and say there isn't a bit of a disappointment there. I love the first arc of Dragon Ball a lot, it's super charming, but what I thought was going to be the bulk of these 194 chapters end up only being the first 23, with the Red Ribbon arc kinda counting, I guess? That sense of wonder adventure isn't really present in most of the actual series. However, what I've learned is to enjoy what the rest of the manga offers in return. Dragon Ball is a solid martial arts manga with a lot of amazing fights scattered through, paneling worth all the praise that you've heard, and fun characters and generally funny moments. It still lasts to read even now, and doesn't really feel aged at all, especially compared to a lot of other shonen manga from the time like Fist of the North or early JoJo or Saint Seiya. Dragon Ball on the other hand has aged far more gracefully, and I'd even go as far as calling it a timeless classic. So will that be true of Z? I don't know, I guess we'll find out next time. So don't miss the next episode because neither will we. If you got that reference, congrats, you're Portuguese. If you want to follow this journey with me, the best thing I can recommend is to subscribe to the channel, but if the video is already out, it'll be the one on the left. And if you watched it till here, thank you very much, and I'll see you next video.